So Rivals has become one of the biggest games on Roblox and was created by Sensei Warrior and Nosniy from Nosniy Games. Before Rivals released, not many people even knew it was in development, and it wasn't even super popular when it first released on June 28th. So I think we should first gather some history about Nosniy Games and how Rivals became to be. Longest standing game still available on the Nosniy Games group is Halloween Simulator, made 6 years ago and was recently updated. In this game, you trick or treat and sometimes might get candy or might get attacked depending on your luck. You can earn pets and level up your pack to explore the other areas in the map. This is probably the only game that Nosniy Games has made that doesn't have that feel that all their other games have. Coming up this game, we have another simulator, Black Hole Simulator. When this game first released, it was one of the most popular simulators on Roblox, but as most simulators do, they tend to die out. In this game, you go around eating everything you can with your black hole until it's time to empty out your bags. If you're strong enough, you can actually suck other players into your black hole, but this is a pretty simple simulator game and there's not really much to it. Overall, this game is a step up from their other simulator game and has that Nosniy Games feel to it. The cartoony aspect makes it feel very special. Starting a new genre of games for Nosniy Games, we have Noodle Arms. This game is probably the silliest game they have made, but still has a decent player base after all these years. In this game, you can grab onto things and fling yourself. You can level up your arms to fling yourself even further. This game is a little strange for most users, but some people still have a fun time playing it. But this game feels more like for children who enjoy just brain rot type games. But I think this is probably the strangest game they have made, but it's kept its own for many years. Now these next games I believe are what make Nosniy Games what they are known for. Starting off with Treasure Quest. Treasure Quest was the most complex game by far that they had released. At the time it was rivaling with Dungeon Quest, but Treasure Quest was much newer and a breath of fresh air for RPG type games. All the big YouTubers were making content on it, and for a while it was one of the biggest games on Roblox. Next few years, there would be consistent updates as Treasure Quest had grown a fan base even after the release hype had died down, releasing seasonal events every single year, content updates in between those seasonal events, even creating unique weapons every single update. There were new mechanics and maps released throughout the years to keep it fresh, but as of recent, the player base has started to die down. Treasure Quest has always had a down season after Christmas and until the summer times, mainly because nothing really happens in between summer and spring. This year the game might never get back to where it was, as this year it has had the least amount of new content for the players to enjoy, basically just the same spring and summer event. Top of that, Dungeon Quest has gained much more popularity than it was a couple years ago. So only time will tell if Treasure Quest will officially die out and stop receiving updates. The next game I need to talk about is Super Golf. Super Golf was probably the most enjoyed game that Nosniy Games has ever made. It was very unique and no other games really had the same mechanics. It was something fresh for the Roblox players to enjoy. Super Golf also popped off at its release the same Treasure Quest did. In recent years, Super Golf has always had more players than Treasure Quest, but as of recently the players have started to decline, similar to Treasure Quest. Don't get me wrong, Super Golf definitely still has a community and people who love the game, but the lack of updates this year has definitely shown a noticeable decline in players. There were some big updates released this year, like the map builder that allows players to create their own maps and let other players play on them. You could assume this update was released because the developers knew that they wouldn't have as much time for updates on their games because they were working on, you guessed it, Rivals. I'm not entirely sure when Rivals started development, but you could assume it was sometime in 2023. Once Nosniy Games announced the development of Rivals, it made sense why there was a lack of updates in Treasure Quest and Super Golf. The last few years, only Super Golf and Treasure Quest were receiving updates, so it made sense why the updates slowed. Not much content was in the updates that actually did release. Before the release of Rivals, Roblox first-person shooter games were not at their highest points. Of course there is Arsenal, but Arsenal has become repetitive for many players, and recent drama has caused for some decline in players. A few times there has been points where players actually thought that Arsenal was just going to die out. There is other games like Gunfight Arena where you can just mindlessly spawn trap people, and it's honestly probably one of my least favorite FPS games. Then there's games like Frontlines that literally looks like Call of Duty in Roblox, which is actually insane. You also have Big Paintball, which has been silent as of recently but still has some players. course there is Phantom Forces, which was one of the only games that used to play like Call of Duty at its peak in players. But Rivals has many things that these games don't offer. Rivals movement is probably the most advanced movement out of any FPS game on Roblox. Rivals has that Nosniy Games feel to it. The graphics in game make me feel happy every time I look at it. Every time you get a kill in Rivals, it actually feels good and rewarding. The animations, the sound, it all goes together too perfectly. Every map is well designed and it has its own unique trait to it. Every gun fits someone else's playstyle. No matter how they play or the map, there is a gun for that player. And probably the biggest reason for Rivals' success is how fast paced it is and how it's actually hard to get bored of. Many different loadouts you can use, to the different players you go against, the different maps, and the different ways to play, it all goes together just too well. The only games that reminds me of Rivals is Murderers vs. Sheriff just because of the queuing system. Rivals probably beats it in every other category. Not to mention they recently added an anti-cheat that correctly bans cheaters and will help the game in the long run dramatically. One last thing is that the developers can add so much more features to Rivals that you can even think of. There are no limits to the amount of content that is able to be added. Even the skins will never run out because all of the amazing concepts being made in their Discord server. You also can't forget about all these YouTubers making content on the game. With consistent updates, there will always be more videos being made. All of that being said, that is how and why Rivals grew to the top and will stay at the top for a while. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.